That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, let's get to the exciting positions that are currently undervalued in Dynasty. I mean, yesterday we went through, we looked at quarterbacks. Maybe the tight end video came out, but I know not too many people are excited about that. Running back is where your bread is buttered, and that's what we are going to be talking about. And of course, before we get into anything, if you have not done so, what else do I need to do? Drop that like. Leave a comment. Let me know whatever your thoughts are. I'm sure that you have seen I'm replying to about as many comments as I possibly can. And subscribe to the channel. Please fix that right now if you've been watching this channel for a while and have not hit the subscribe button. I honestly have a lot to talk about. I don't want to talk about Patreon. I just want to dive into this. Let's go directly over to our first running back that we are going to be looking at. And of course, I mean, we are going to continue this same trend. We're looking at DLF ADP, not promoting or anything, but DLF ADP is a good set of ADP data that we can be comparing to our own rankings. Really good considering the fact that, I mean, a lot of people over there drafting on DLF, I mean, aren't a part of the flock. So I feel like I don't really have any influence whatsoever over there, where maybe if you get into a flock mock draft, my rankings are going to influence that just slightly. But nonetheless, let's dive into our first running back. And I feel like we're cheating a little bit here. I don't know why this ADP set hasn't been updated for February yet. To be honest, I'm recording this on February 11th. I know that's, I mean, a long time ago, but I have a lot going on. We're actually flying to Colorado to go ski. So we are looking at January ADP, but not a lot has changed outside of a handful of games. And this one player is someone that has changed a lot with. That's Cam Akers. Now, recording this before the Super Bowl, as we've already discussed, and with Cam Akers here, he has had a pretty bad, I think we can all be honest, a pretty bad postseason so far. I mean, if you're going and you're looking at his yards per carry, if you're just comparing him to other running backs in this backfield, I mean, I am the biggest Cam Akers fan on the planet. I think that he's undervalued, but I can be the first person to admit that if you turn on a Rams game and you watch it, Cam Akers looks like he's been bad at football through the first 3 weeks so far this year. Now, hopefully we get that Cam Akers breakout during the Super Bowl. And I am honestly more excited about this postseason, even with Cam Akers performing poorly, than I would be, I mean, if he never came back at all. I mean, with Cam Akers here, I am jumping up and down every time we just get to see him on the field. And maybe that's because I'm very biased. Maybe that's because I've liked Cam Akers for a very long time. But in my opinion, Akers has always had the talent that we look for. I mean, if you look at his prospect profile coming out of Florida State, obviously was like the #1 high school running back coming out, goes to Florida State, isn't hyper productive, but he was playing in one of the worst situations you could ever imagine. But more importantly, it doesn't matter his production at Florida State because, as we always talk about, what matters historically are those 4 boxes that we look for. Team investment, aka draft capital, athleticism, aka size adjusted 40-yard dash times, size, aka BMI, to see if that running back can handle work on all 3 downs, and lastly, receiving game capability, aka college target share, which Cam Akers had a better one than Travis Etienne. So Cam Akers was an elite prospect coming out. He showed the elite flashes at the end of his rookie season, and this is a fantastic organization that he's on his rookie contract for. The only uncertainty that there currently is with Cam Akers is the injury that he had to that Achilles and how that may alter his game in the long term. Now, there's one other thing that I will address quickly because I have to be completely honest. If it happened with any other running back, I would be talking about it over and over and over again. I mean, we just dog on Nick Chubb every chance we get because of it. Cam Akers so far in his NFL career has not demonstrated the ability to catch the ball. Now, I think that this is something that will change. As we discussed at Florida State, Cam Akers was a more than capable pass catching running back. And I think that once you get him more involved in this offense and have a scheme around him, I don't want to say he'll turn into a Todd Gurley level pass catcher, but he will definitely be a player that can at least get to 3-4 receptions a game, which is what we are looking for. Give me 3.5 receptions a game from Cam Akers. I'm completely fine for a PPR format. Now, if you're looking at DLF ADP, I'm expecting that Cam Akers has to rise in this ADP set, because right now he's at running back 15, which is why I'm saying it's like we're cheating here. But in our own rankings, we have Cam Akers currently as running back 6. Now, please let me know your opinion on this. But who else are we supposed to put ahead of Cam Akers? If you look at his age, if you look at that profile, and if you look at the ability to come back from that Achilles injury 6 months afterwards, and I would imagine that a lot of his explosive ability should return after an entire offseason of being able to rehab that injury after the Super Bowl. I think that he is going to go back to being the running back that we thought he was 12 months ago, even though if you would have asked me, say 6 weeks ago before he returned for the Rams, I was very pessimistic based on that injury. I was telling people that they were overdrafting him in the 3rd round of Dynasty startup drafts based on the injury, and I was saying that I was avoiding him entirely, even though he's probably my most owned player in Dynasty. Well, now, once we've seen him be able to come back, I am willing to overlook that. I am willing to say that I think he makes the return and that we were wrong just a few months ago, which I am wrong all the time, so that's not a surprise to anybody. But who are you supposed to have over Akers? J.K. Dobbins. We have J.K. Dobbins in the same tier as Cam Akers. Saquon Barkley, can't have Barkley over him. Antonio Gibson, I can't have Antonio Gibson over him. I mean, you have the older tier running backs, guys like Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, all at 27 years old, going into year 3 of their second deals. Whereas you have Cam Akers as a 22-year-old. Give me Akers. I think that we're building around that workhorse 3-down running back in an elite level offense that can improve as a pass catching running back based on what we saw in college. Now, speaking of the other running back that we have in that same tier, we actually have J.K. Dobbins currently. And with Dobbins, I mean, whether you're talking Dynasty or even best ball redraft, I think right now Dobbins is a fantastic value in all formats, because very similar to what we were discussing with Akers, J.K. Dobbins checked almost every single box coming out of Ohio State. This was a player that was an elite level guy coming out of high school. He had all the pedigree in the world. He gets to Ohio State. He is, dominant there. And at the same time, he proves that he has the elite athletic profile at his pro day in 2020 by running a 4.32 40-yard dash. Now, of course, you have to pro day adjust it. Of course, you can't look at a 4.32 40-yard dash for J.K. Dobbins at his pro day and say that that would be his time at the NFL Combine. Probably be a little bit lower. But still, nonetheless, you can see the size, you can see the speed, you can see the team investment by Baltimore, and he wasn't a great pass-catching running back at Ohio State, but a big thing is you're not ever going to have a very large role in the receiving game in that Baltimore offense, with Lamar Jackson being that rush-first quarterback regardless. We know that quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, they're not going to be checking the ball down at a very high rate. We see the same thing with Taysom Hill over in New Orleans whenever he gets the spot start, and you have to drastically change your expectations with the target share of Alvin Kamara. So I think the lack of usage in the receiving game for Dobbins would be expected regardless of how good he was at Ohio State at catching the football. So what matters is this athleticism and this build and how it will incorporate into one of the most efficient rushing offenses that we have seen over the past 5 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. And if we are projecting him going forward, you're in a very similar boat with a J.K. Dobbins, comparing him to someone like a Cam Akers. J.K. Dobbins just turned 23 years old. So if you're looking at his DLF ADP, and I'll say real quick, I'm not worried about this injury with Dobbins whatsoever. It happening before the season started. He should have an entire 12 months to rehab when historically you only need 9 months for that injury. I'm not worried about the J.K. Dobbins injury in the slightest, whereas I would be worried about someone like Chris Godwin, where his injury occurred at the very end of the season. I'm not worried about Dobbins. And if we're looking at his DLF ADP, right now he is the running back 12. He's going behind Austin Eckler, Barkley, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook. I can't get there. As we've always discussed, you look at historically that 27 age mark for these running backs, I mean, as the major red flag that the end is near sometime soon. So if we're talking J.K. Dobbins, I have J.K. Dobbins ranked right next to Cam Akers as my running back 7 in Dynasty. Just an entire tier ahead of that veteran grouping. I think Dobbins, Akers will be players coming back from these injuries and really, I mean, becoming top 12 running backs in fantasy this season. And if they're doing so at 22, 23 years old, I'm willing to invest into them, I mean, at a very high mark in Dynasty. Okay, now let's go over to another young running back that I'm sure everybody expects us to talk about, that everybody knows we're going to be talking about here, Travis Etienne. Now, yes, with Etienne, I was taking pretty much every shot that we had last offseason in rookie drafts. I mean, we were looking at the prospect profile and drawing a one-for-one comparison between him and another running back that we loved and another running back that we were significantly higher on compared to consensus in DeAndre Swift. And we were claiming, hell, DeAndre Swift and Travis Etienne, and I know everybody's tired of this, but they're the new age Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones. They are running backs. They're profiled to get every target out of the backfield. They're profiled to get every touch in the red zone. So it doesn't matter if you have Jamal Williams. It doesn't matter if you have Latavius Murray. Just stealing work between the 20s, because those carries between the 20s, they don't equal fantasy points. Hell, go get your 12 carries for your 41 rushing yards and let my running back get their 7 targets out of the backfield and also the touch inside the 5-yard line so they can come away with the touchdown, as Aaron Jones has pretty much every year since 2017, as Alvin Kamara has pretty much every year since 2017. And to go over and look at Travis Etienne, I mean, let's just go through those 4 boxes that we always look for. Team investment, it's there. Selected in the first round by, yes, a different coaching staff. I'll be the first person to admit you have to just be less optimistic for the plan on Travis Etienne if he was selected by a different coaching staff. Well, they're definitely a worse one, but nonetheless, compared to what's currently there. And to go along with this, the size, that was the one question that we had about Travis Etienne going into his pro day last offseason. And I know a lot of people want to say, oh, it's water weight, it's water weight, it's water weight. Can you not say that about any other player? Like what are we talking about here? That's like saying, oh, the fighters in the UFC, they dehydrated themselves before this. Don't you know? He actually weighs 10 more pounds in real life. Come on, what are we talking about? We're looking at all the same data points for all these players that do the same process going in to get what they need to. And here, Travis Etienne, he had a BMI of 30.8, exactly what we're looking for. And of course, Travis Etienne has always had the speed, never questioned that. And he was a fantastic pass catching running back at Clemson. So he profiled to be very, very comparable to DeAndre Swift. Now, what's interesting is this injury to James Robinson, because I think a lot of people are going to have just unrealistic expectations on the timeline for James Robinson to come back from this injury. Whereas with a player like Cam Akers, you had no idea when he was coming back. I know that Cam Akers was able to make it back in a timely manner, but every other running back with that same injury really has not been able to. It took Donta Foreman 2 years to make it back. And I love Foreman. Of course, Hook 'em Horns, he was a great running back before. It took him 2 years where he bounced from practice squad to practice squad to be able to make it back from that injury. I mean, Marlon Mack, he came back, I mean, about, I want to say, a year in 2 weeks or so after that same injury. And what did Marlon Mack do? Marlon Mack had by far and away the worst efficiency of his entire career and ended up getting benched by the Indianapolis Colts. So even if it takes James Robinson 12 months to return from that injury, you're looking at a timeline where if Robinson's able to make it back in 12 months, he's not playing next year. He's coming back week 14, 15, 16 to a Jacksonville Jaguars team that we can imagine won't be, playoff eligible by then. So what will be the incentive for them to rush back James Robinson for 3 weeks just to see him on the field? No, they're probably going to shut him down. They're probably not going to do that to the man and give him just an additional offseason to rehab. So if you begin to go through and look at the calendar for James Robinson, Travis Etienne looks like not only a running back that can be DeAndre Swift, maybe he's going to be a slightly worse version of DeAndre Swift that's able to pick up an additional 4 to 6 carries. I'm not saying that Travis Etienne is going to become a top 5 running back by any means, because I don't think Etienne is the same level of talent as DeAndre Swift in terms of making defenders miss in the open field, but his usage will be very similar. The offense, I know Jacksonville's horrible. Y'all know I've been the guy screaming for I don't know how long to sell low on Trevor Lawrence. If you had to take a bet on what offense was going to be better, the 2022 Jacksonville Jaguars or the 2021 Detroit Lions, I'm going to go with the Jags. So I think Travis Etienne, if you're looking at his DLF ADP, right now he's going behind guys like Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, he's going behind Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell is going rounds ahead of Travis Etienne. Give me Travis Etienne over Elijah Mitchell. Give me Travis Etienne over Ezekiel Elliott, but I think almost everybody would prefer Etienne over Zeke. I don't think I have to convince anybody on that point. But with Etienne, I'm always going to be willing to bet on that player, especially if he had that capital and he checked all those boxes and he failed because of an injury rather than just the inability to play. This was a massive mistake that I made, I mean, over and over and over again, to be completely honest, in 2014, 2015, 2016, and probably even 2017. I was always the guy going out there and trying to buy low on the rookie after his rookie season. And it never worked out. I was the guy in 2018 going and buying low on Royce Freeman. And I think that we can safely learn from those lessons and go, hell, after that player disappoints to an extreme their rookie year, look at Terrace Marshall, look at Trey Sermon from this past season. It's probably not working out. But if that player missed the year due to an injury, way too early to tell. And we should be going back to our evaluation of last offseason. And y'all know last offseason, we were all about Travis Etienne equaling DeAndre Swift. And now let's go over to a running back that last offseason I was completely wrong on, Michael Carter. With Michael Carter, I mean, I was saying to fade him once he fell to the 4th round because one of those critical boxes of team investment he simply didn't have. And I was not certain that you were going to look at Michael Carter as a player that was guaranteed to ever be the running back 1 for the New York Jets. Now, of course, he was the most likely guy to be, but I thought the price point people were paying in Dynasty, they were making the assumption that the likelihood was just a little too high. Now, if you're looking at DLF ADP of Michael Carter and you're looking at where we have him in our rankings, I have Michael Carter at running back 19 in the same tier as A.J. Dillon. I have him directly behind David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, and Josh Jacobs. Whereas if you're looking at DLF ADP, he's behind guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, behind someone like Aaron Jones, behind someone like Ezekiel Elliott, and he's down there at 24. I think based on what we saw with Michael Carter his rookie year, this is a running back that proved that he does have that elite pass catching capability that pretty much everybody and their mom was talking about being his strong suit last offseason. I think we saw this offense can incorporate Michael Carter successfully, and based on the holes that this team has across the entire roster, I would be surprised if this is one of those organizations that goes out there and pays a luxury pick, whether that's a 2nd rounder to get Breece Hall, whether that's, an early 3rd to go and get someone like Isaiah Spiller. I would imagine that they actually avoid those running backs in this year's draft class, that Michael Carter's role at the minimum of a pass-catching running back in New York is going to be safe and sound, and that there's a chance that this offense is better this upcoming season than they were last. I'm not sitting here on the train screaming, oh, you're going to get Zach Wilson to break out. Zach Wilson's breaking out. I would bet that Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, 2 of those guys are just going to flame out. 2 of them are going to fail this upcoming season. Good luck picking which one is going to have success. I'll say it's Trey Lance, if you needed to know. But outside of that, Michael Carter, yeah, he had that 3-down profile. I mean, he actually does work his way into having a role. He's on that rookie contract. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take my L and say, hell, everybody else in the Dynasty community, y'all were right. Michael Carter is that 3-down player for the New York Jets, and I'm going to be ranking him as a low to mid running back 2 based on that rookie contract and his receiving game capability in a PPR format. Now, I think that's all we got for this video. Of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. And if you have not done so already, go Go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Let me know running backs that you think are currently undervalued in Dynasty Fantasy Football. We have a couple other cheap options. Maybe we'll make another video talking about that later on. But I think that's all I got for you. Hope you have a great day. Hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.